Hey family, today's Black History Spotlight is on Shirley Lee. She was born in 1935. She skis and bikes and roller skates, but more than anything, she loves being in the water. As soon as she steps into a pool and begins to swim, her mind goes traveling, and she is often surprised to find that, while she was thinking of other things, she has swum to the other end of the pool. But being under the sea is different. Her mind remains alert, aware of her diving partner and her surroundings, and the rules that have made her an expert scuba diver. She dives for the fun of it, for adventure, and in that way, she is still very much like the little girl who was born and grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, not far from Washington, D.C. Born Shirley Marshall on September 26, 1935, the youngest of four children, she liked to be involved in everything. In her neighborhood, she played marbles and jacks and jump rope. She liked to draw. She could look at an object, sometimes a face, and draw it. At school, she danced in shows, sang in the choir, played baseball and soccer. She was a cheerleader and a drum majorette. In the summer, Shirley spent every day to a nearby playground where, once a week, the children were taken to play in the pool at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. One day, when Shirley was 13, they went for the first time to the pool at Francis Junior High School in Washington. She had never had a swimming lesson, but she had been playing and bouncing in water for some time, and she was sure that if she just jumped in, she would be able to swim. She was the first one out on deck and was about to go into the water when another child came out and saw her. He warned her to wait for the lifeguard, but she refused and jumped into what she thought would be very deep water. But at the Francis pool, the deep water was in the middle and the shallow water was at each end, and she was in trouble. Just in time, the lifeguard came out and saw her. He rescued her, and that was the day Shirley decided that she was going to learn to swim. She became an expert swimmer at Fort Belvoir, Johnson Memorial, and other pools in the area. As she grew up, Shirley worked at swimming pools as a lifeguard during the summers. When she was 23, she married Lavelle Lee and continued to work as a lifeguard and then as a manager of swimming pools. After their two sons were born, she would often take them with her to play in the pool when they were on vacation from school. In 1966, at a pool she managed in Washington, Shirley Lee met the person who would introduce her to a new adventure, one that would become an important part of her life. Dr. Albert Jose Jones came often to the pool to swim. When Mrs. Lee asked him about the decorative patches he wore on his shirt, he explained that he had earned them as a scuba diver. Dr. Jones had been a scuba diver for many years. In 1959, he had organized a group of African American men in the Washington area, taught them to dive, and founded the Underwater Adventure Seekers. Shirley Lee asked if he would teach her to dive, and he did. She had to learn to swim 36 laps around the pool with a tank of air strapped to her back and to swim underwater. She wore a face mask that was connected to the tank, a special suit called a wetsuit, a weight belt around her waist to keep her from floating to the top, and fins on her feet. She had to learn to tread water, moving her feet to keep her body upright and her head above water, both with the help of her hands in the water and then with her hands in the air. When she had learned all that she needed to know to become a diver, Dr. Jones tested her on her skills and she passed the test. Then she asked to join the Underwater Adventure Seekers. The men voted her in and she became their first female member. Her first dive outside of the pool took place with the group in the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. She had to carry her own equipment, including a tank that was made of heavy steel in those days instead of aluminum. But she carried it herself and didn't ask for help from the men. The divers went into the water in pairs. Each one was assigned a buddy to dive with and to stay with so that they could help each other in case of emergency. Going down, Shirley Lee felt relaxed and free and happy, as she had known she would. because she loved the water so much. Since that first dive, she has traveled from and with the underwater adventure seekers to many places in the world while on leave from her computer job in the federal government. Her husband, Lovell Lee, enjoys traveling with her, although he does not dive. Shirley Lee has executed more than 1,000 dives in water off the coast of such places as Haiti, Morocco, Jamaica, Egypt, Mexico, Bermuda, and Curacao. In Belize, Central America, she dove 140 feet to explore a dark blue hole that was approximately the width of 2 city blocks. She has visited shipwrecks buried in the sea. She has seen all kinds of colorful fish, coral, conch shells, eels, and sharks. On the trip to the Bahamas, she dove in a place where the sharks were kept, well fed, and posed no threat to divers. When she dove in daylight, she could see that the sharks kept their distance, but during a night dive in the same area, she was afraid. It was too dark to see them, but she knew they were there. The divers descended 80 feet using their flashlights to guide them. When they reached bottom, they turned off their flashlight and held hands until their eyes adjusted to the darkness. Their fins shone in the dark, allowing them to swim and not lose one another. Mrs. Lee relaxed and swam, but she didn't totally forget the sharks that were swimming all around them. There have been a few times when she faced real danger. Once she was riding in a small motorboat with 3 other divers when a storm came. The strong winds blew the waves over the sides of the boat and it capsized. The divers hung onto the overturned boat as long as they could, hoping that someone would see them and come to their rescue, but nobody came. They decided to try to swim for shore. Mrs. Lee's hands were freezing and her legs got very tired, but she kept swimming and finally they reached the shore. Later she discovered that their swim to safety had been 2 miles long. The stamina she had developed from swimming the required laps around the pool had saved her life. In all of her dives, Shirley Lee has been grateful to Dr. Jones for all that he taught her: the hand signals to use in communicating with her underwater buddies, how to kick to bring herself up to the surface, to breathe slowly in order to conserve the air in her tank, and other skills. In 1991, Dr. Jones and Miami diver Rick Pyle founded the National Association of Black Scuba Divers, with the underwater adventure seekers at the founding club. Their goal was to organize divers in cities other than Washington, D.C. to form a network. Since that time, the National Association of Black Scuba Divers has grown to a membership of more than 50 diving clubs across the United States and other countries, totaling thousands of divers, men and women. And that is Shirley Lee. All right, happy Black History Month.